Today on the show, we have Kevin Carr, the co founder and CEO of Movement as Medicine, a unique company that blends together personalized physical training with expert massage therapy. I personally know them to be wizards at fixing your broken body. It's going to be a great episode, so without further ado, let's get right into it. I've known you for quite a while now, but I don't think I've ever asked you like where you grew up or like where you went to school, all that stuff. So if you could kind of
Yeah.
indulge in that.
Yeah. So I grew up in Massachusetts. I grew up in Maynard, Massachusetts, which is a smaller town, central Massachusetts. So I grew up there, and then I went to UMass Amherst for college. So I kind of always knew I wanted to go into strength and conditioning, kinesiology, and they had a good program. And so I kind of headed right out to UMass, and I've been that's kind of what led me to Mike Boyle strength and conditioning as well. So kind of my whole career, my whole life's been based in Mass, and um, you know, the UMass was a great option for me, and that's where I met a lot of people who I work with and people who I start businesses like Brendan as well. So it was a good place for me to go to school.
Nice. So like what kind of like sports or like passions did you have coming up through high school that like really led you down this path of strength and conditioning? And how did you find Mike Boyle? Was he just like a big name at the time or what was good with that?
Yeah, so I played every sport growing up. Like I feel like you don't see as many multi-sport athletes now. You see kids who specialize, but I played football, I played basketball, I did baseball, I did track and field, and so I was just liked playing sports. And like a lot of people who get into strength and conditioning or physical therapy, it usually starts with some sort of injury experience. So I got hurt. It was my junior year of high school playing football. I had a shoulder dislocation and a labral repair on my shoulder, and in that process rehabbing, I had a really good physical therapy experience. I really actually it was very good. That my shoulder's great shape now, and I really took to lifting weights at that point, and so that kind of really pushed me towards looking into the rehab and performance field in physical therapy and strength conditioning. And at the same time, I was actually working at a Gold's Gym in Maynard, Massachusetts, and typical like meathead workouts, like I just kind of flip open the muscle and fitness and see like what the chest workout was, or like what the back workout was of the day, and just do that. And then there was this guy there named Clark Evans, and I always bring up the story because I thank him for steering me in the right direction. And I remember he was like a private contractor there, so he was not working for the gym, but he kind of rented space. And I looked over one day and I see him doing like single leg squats, and I see him doing hang cleans, and I see him doing chin ups, and I'm over on like the pec deck machine cranking away. And he asked me to come work out with him, so I did. I went and I worked out with him, and it was awesome. I'd never done any of this stuff before. I was like wrecked, and he told me he had just done a mentorship. He's like with this guy Mike Boyle, and he's the strength coach at Boston University, and he has a gym. And I was heading into college at this point. I was going to go into my freshman year, so I was probably like 18, going on 19 years old. And he's like, "Oh, you should just apply for an internship." And so I applied for an internship in during my freshman year of college. And I had no idea who Mike Boyle was. Like he did have a pretty big name at that time, but he was 30 minutes away. I'd never even been to Woburn, Massachusetts, and so I got it, and I've just been there since. And it's just been a really good place to develop myself. And I was lucky that I kind of started there early in my career, and I kind of was able to gain a lot of practical experience throughout my 4 years in college. So that way, when I came out, I had a job to go to, and had some practical experience on my belt by the time I headed into the real world.
Awesome. That's awesome. Uh, so was the location where it is still today, is that still, or they expanded since?
Yeah, we moved. So when I first started, we were about a mile down the road on Cross Street,
Oh, okay.
actually in Winchester. Yep.
Mhm.
And so that's when I first started there. For the first like 3 years I was there, that's where we were. So I'd come back in the winter, on our winter break, on our spring break, on our summer break, and I'd work, and then I'd go back to school. And then right when we graduated in 2010, we moved to the new location that we're at now,
Mhm.
and expanded. And then we moved and built that second location up in Milton. So I've seen the company grow a lot just in that time frame. And I think part of that is privatized strength and conditioning really exploded and got really popular in like the late 2000s there. And Mike's business kind of really expanded too. And that kind of coincided with like the CrossFit boom as well, because I think more people are starting to look towards strength training as an avenue to gain fitness rather than just doing cardio or running or things like that.
Totally. Yeah, I've definitely noticed like a complete boom of like the CrossFit games, and all my friends at school are super into CrossFit and just like follow all the top athletes and stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, well,
Um,
it's interesting because like Mike especially has been one of the most critical people as it relates to CrossFit, right? I mean, I don't totally agree with the programming or the implementation, but there's one thing you have to give them a lot of credit for, and it's the marketing and popularity of strength training. Like to the
yeah,
average consumer, if they just went to the windows in Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning and looked in, they wouldn't they wouldn't know the difference. They would probably just think it's CrossFit. They see people throwing med
yeah,
balls, they see people jumping, they see people doing hang cleans. So that makes this more attractive to the average consumer. So for us, I think we probably benefited as a business. And then when they come in and we probably might do a better job at keeping them healthy, it's probably even better. So they definitely open the average consumer's eyes to lifting weights and working out in a different way.
yeah, yeah. I remember when I was first coming to work out with you and other people at Boyles, I was super intimidated because like, what are they doing here? Like, this is so
Yeah.
different from anything else I've done. But you guys do such a good job of like walking you through it and like actually explaining what you're doing, that like you just want to keep coming back more and more because you're just learning so much about like your body and how everything works. That it's an educational experience as well as a good workout.
Yeah, because you would come in originally, like you had some injuries that we kind of worked through, and then we kind of worked through that into just getting you training, right? And kind of
Yeah.
and you going through that whole injury process as well.
Yeah, totally. Definitely had it my own. I totally related to you when you were saying your shoulder, because like that's when I started to really get into it. Was like, all right, like how do I get healthy from this, and how do I like strengthen myself so this doesn't happen again? Um, all right, so you come to Boyles and you're coming up through the ranks. How did you go from like an achieving strength and conditioning coach and coming up through the ranks there to like starting to think like, oh, like there's so much more we could do. I want to start my own business. Like what really drove you to do that? What was the point where the switch flipped, and what made you actually start to take the first steps in your business?
Yeah, I mean, Mike being a mentor is really a big part of this for me because like as I started to build my career there, you kind of have to think about where do you want to be 5 years from now, 3 years from now down the road, and start to kind of roadmap your life. And in strength and conditioning, you can really go a couple different paths, right? You can either go into the team-based model and go work at a university, go work at a professional organization, or you can be in privatized strength and conditioning, like Mike is, and
Hmm.
he kind of had his foot in both worlds. And kind of build a business. And I took some time to look into the team setting. I did internships. I took some interviews at different organizations, and ultimately I realized I wanted to work for myself. And seeing that model of Mike Boyle and Bob Hansen at MBSC kind of opened my eyes to, oh, I could build my own business. And thankfully, at being an MBSC, they kind of will nurture that entrepreneurial spirit for you. The benefit of it being a small business, like a pretty small like family owned business, is that they'll invest in their employees to try to build different initiatives and kind of empower themselves, and that was really helpful to me. So as I kind of went full on into working at MBSC and wanting to be in a privatized setting, like Brendan Rierick and myself, we had some ideas we brought to Mike and Bob, and they were all for it, and they were willing to invest and help us kind of build our businesses, as so long as we could continue to serve them, right? For them, I think it made sense to invest in their employees, people that they wanted to keep there to help their business grow, and it'll also allow us to build something for ourselves. And being able to watch the model that Mike and Bob put forward kind of helped us figure out how we could do it on our own. And that's kind of what CFSC was born out of. That's what Movement is Medicine was born out of. And kind of all these other initiatives that we're building in MBSC were all powered kind of by them investing in us, giving us the power to do that.
Gotcha. So what is CFSC exactly?
Yep. So Certified Functional Strength Coach, CFSC, is a certification company that Brendan Rierick, Kevin Larrabee, and Mike and Bob and myself formed. And so for years, people were asking Mike to build a certification. And right, so like say, Ben, you want to become a personal trainer tomorrow. You're like, hey, I want to go into personal training, you need to go get a certification so you can go work somewhere. And what's interesting about the fitness industry, it's all privatized.
Ah,
So it's not like my state licensure. For massage, I have to go through a massage school that's licensed by the state, apply for a state license, and pay my yearly fees. For training, it's not like that. For better or worse, there's positives and negatives to that, right?
yeah.
Where it's just all privatized companies, but you have to have some sort of certification. So uh, people have been asking Mike forever to make a certification, and he was very resistant to it, mainly because when people come to work for us, we don't really care what they have for certification as long as they have something, because in our mind we're going to train them how we want them to do their job. It'll be kind of their internship process with us over the 3 months is them being certified in our way of doing things. And so Mike was resistant to it just because he didn't really place value on it. But then uh, Kevin Larrabee, Brendan Rierick, and myself kind of pushed him, like, I think we can really build something good here if we bottle up everything that we teach in the internship into a course that people can take online, and then actually come to a practical certification course. And the reason we focus on the practical certification courses, which is, this is unbelievable, is in our industry there actually isn't a certification company that has a practical involved, which is
Oh wow.
crazy. So
That's
like you could read the book and take the online exam at a Kaplan test center and get
yeah.
your piece of paper, but never have coached anyone. So that's why
Oh,
we hadn't really valued it. And so we said, if we're going to do this, we want to build one where people actually have to come and coach, and we can pass and fail them based off their coaching experience.
mm,
And so that's what we built. And I think that's why it became very popular, because coaches wanted to have the opportunity to actually go through a practical experience to learn and prove
mm.
their knowledge rather than just taking a test. So that's what CFSC is. And now it's kind of expanded. We're in about 20 countries. We have about 9,000 coaches around the world right now. And we're still plugging away through the pandemic right now, certifying coaches online and doing online practicals as well.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome because I feel like strength and conditioning and working out is such a like people in the industry can fake it so much that like it's hard to tell whether someone you're working with is actually like the real deal or not. So like obviously Boyle's movement as medicine is like the real deal as it comes, but like to actually know that someone has a certification from you guys, I feel like would go such a long way. Um, all right, so you have this great idea for movement in medicine with Brandon, right? Or Brendan.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so you're being mentored and you have all these great ideas from Mike Boyle and was there another person you mentioned? That,
Kevin Larrabee helps CFSC. Oh, and Bob Hansen. Yeah,
oh,
Bob
Bob
Hansen,
Hansen.
owner at
So
NBSC.
I feel like when I'm listening to and reading all these entrepreneurial things, it's always like taking the first step. So like, how did you actually like bite the bullet and jump off the cliff? Like, what
Yeah.
was the first thing you did towards your movement as medicine?
So
Oh,
this is what we did. So we were working at NBSC, and we saw that there was a need for like massage work, like manual therapy. Like Paloff does PT, not as much of a manual therapist, and there was just more athletes and people that he could see. So Brendan and I said, let's send ourselves to massage school first and go get some education. And we knew we wanted to open a business since college. Brendan and I knew we wanted to open a business. I still remember sitting in a gen ed class that I don't even know what it was. We weren't paying attention. And Brendan and I were reading he was reading Crush It by Gary Vaynerchuk, which was Gary Vaynerchuk's first book. And I
mhm.
was reading E-Myth, which is a book all about entrepreneurship. It's
Oh
still,
no.
I think, the best book, called E-Myth. And it's all about like how to systemize and build a business. And we read them and switched, and we were writing notes about what we want to do. And this is when we were in college still. And so we always knew we wanted to do something. And then so we said, what's the first thing we need to do if we want to open a massage business here is we have to go to massage school. So we paid our way through massage school at night. So that was the first step, really. And like we're paying cash every time we went in,
Hmm.
so we didn't have to take out loans. We did it,
Nice.
6 to 9 on Monday, Wednesday nights, and then 9 to 2 on Saturday mornings while we were working. And we finished up massage school in about a year and a half. And then we got out, and it was just really, really, really fortuitous timing in that if you've been to MBSC, you know where movement as medicine is, right? We didn't used to
Mhm.
have that space. We just had that middle bay. When we first
Oh
moved in,
yeah.
we only had the middle room
Wow.
where the weight room is.
Mhm.
This business where movement as medicine is and all the big turf room is, that was
Oh,
a whole nother business. And
huh.
they moved out a couple months before Brandon and I went to massage school, and we took
That's perfect.
MBSC took the space. And there was that front little office area that Mike and Bob didn't really know what they wanted to do with.
Mm.
And Brendan and I went into their office and said, how much to rent this from you guys? Like, and we didn't even have any money to rent it yet. So we worked out a deal before we could get a flat rate. We worked out a deal where like we gave them a percentage of the sales, right? We're like, hey, we'll give you, a percentage of each sale we make in Movement is Medicine if we can rent the space until we have enough capital to pay you a consistent fee. And they were very, again, giving us opportunities. Not many business owners would say, hey, you work for me, but you can also start your own business in my business.
Mm-hmm.
But what we said to them is like, listen, we're going to pay for some capital to you guys for rent. It's not cheap to rent this space. And we're going to provide a service to the people that come here. And it's going to help keep us here as employees because it gives us another income stream. Like I have no reason to leave. So they were very agreeable in letting us do that as long as we could still keep doing what we had to do at the gym. And then we had to figure out how to actually start a business. Like, okay, how do we get a business license? How do we actually start a business? And luckily, like it's all about who you know, right? Like
Yeah.
I have a client who was a lawyer, and I said, "Can you help me with this?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure. I'll help you put S corp together. I'll show you how to get insurance and set up a business." And Brendan and I it's really ready, fire, aim is the truest thing. Like you don't know what to do, but if you don't try it, you'll never figure it out. So we just had to kind of figure out how to set up all our systems and our accounting and then eventually how to hire people. And it's just the snowball starts rolling. And it's still rolling. Like every day, I'm always figuring out like, oh, okay, I guess I have to do this now. I guess I have to do this now. Because I mean, first and foremost, I was a massage therapist and a trainer. I wasn't a business owner. And the book E-Myth talks a lot about that, about like learning how to go from being a technician to being a manager to being an owner. And I'm still kind of figuring that process out, to be truthful.
That's awesome. So in the way of this being like a potential podcast, if you would explain, like I know exactly what Movement is Medicine is and
Mm-hmm.
what like Boyles does, but if you could explain it on like a very like granular level for
Yeah.
like potential listeners.
Yeah. So Movement is Medicine, we kind of are a in between from physical therapy to performance training. So what we were seeing was there was a lot of athletes and just general population clients who come to Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning who might have had aches or pains or just some chronic stiffness, and they didn't need a physical therapy referral. A lot of people were kind of just living with this on a day to day, and they might just have little flare ups. And they really need manual therapy and just some thoughtful exercise progressions to get them back to training. And so we've opened up a cash-based practice where Brendan and I are both massage therapists. All the people who work at Movement Medicine are massage therapists, and they're also strength and conditioning coaches and personal trainers. And that's the model we wanted, because the reason we call it Movement is Medicine is like I want people to always think like I'm going to come in here and get some manual therapy work, but I'm also going to exercise. Because generally the reason why people have chronic discomfort or stiffness is a lack of fitness in some capacity. Like they did something they weren't strong enough for, and we have to kind of build them back. So what people do, they come in to see us, we figure out how to get them moving better, get them feeling better, and then we kind of build a progressive exercise plan to get them back training in personal training, training in groups, or playing whatever sport they want to play, so they can take care of themselves. And that's really what we do. So I kind of split my time between working out as a performance coach and kind of working as a rehab therapist at Movement is Medicine.
Awesome. Yeah, what I like so much about your guys' business model is it seems like from day one, it was always a value add to everybody around you. Like Mike Boyle, like immediately has in-house like physical therapy and manual manipulation. And you guys have immediate client base and customers being directed right to you guys. And it's just a win-win for everybody. So as you guys were growing, what kind of strategies, if it was from marketing to like trying to go online or like in your finances trying to cut costs, were there any like deliberate strategies you guys were trying to implement as you guys were going from ground zero?
Yeah, I guess the biggest one is like the most obvious and the simple is like ask. I think one thing that Brendan and I learned is like the your best marketing is the people you already have. And so we always,
Totally.
so many people spend so much time and energy on external marketing, like getting new people. But if you go ahead and be like, ask the people, hey, do you know anyone who you could refer to us? We really appreciate you sending any customers our way. And like the word of mouth is like 10x what you could get on an Instagram ad usually for
Totally.
an ROI. So that was really helpful. Like just having like you said, a captive audience at the gym who would come see us, and then us asking for other people. That's what did this for us. Also, what Brendan and I did our first year in business, which I think was really helpful, is we took every penny that we made outside of paying rent, and we reinvested it for education. So like we didn't pay ourselves for the first year, and we actually like made money the first year, which was surprising.
That's awesome.
Uh, but we took it and we put it all back into a bunch of certification courses, a bunch of education courses, and some business education. And that like got us way ahead because we got this education so quickly. Like we would have never been able to afford some of the education courses we took that helped us kind of make us smarter and help us build a better model. But we had this extra capital coming in from the business. And we said, let's just take the first year and invest all this back into some education courses we want to take so we can kind of take a step ahead. And because we did that, I think our services just improved.
Hmm.
Like, and so then we had better outcomes. We had clients who were happy, and that brought more people in the door. And then from there, we started focusing on external marketing, whether it's like social media, or now there's so much like social media advertising, whether it's Facebook ads or Instagram ads and things like that. But I think the biggest thing has always just been word of mouth for us.
Totally. That's awesome. So it seems like what you guys did to like have a competitive edge all the time is just constantly staying up to date and educated in the field. And you mentioned something really interesting earlier that you guys were paying cash every time you were taking all these like uh, courses. Just talking to like a lot of people who have a lot of student debts, how do you think that like helped you guys in the long run? And do you see that as like the better strategy, or would you have changed it going back?
I'm eternally grateful, and I got a lot of good habits, honestly, from Brendan, because we always joke that he's like the cheapest individual on the planet. Like when we all lived together, like the heat never went above 55, and like we shopped on a real budget. But like because of that, like I remember he had this whole article. It's really interesting. I should actually send it to you. I mean, student loan debt's a huge problem now for so many kids at your age, about how he paid off his all his college loans in the first like couple years out of college, and
Wow.
like the things he did to save money. And it's kind of crazy. But he but because of that, we were like, okay, we just did the math, like, hey, if we're going to get through massage school, I think was like $12,000 or so.
Dang.
Finding ways we could test out of classes because I had a kinesiology degree, finding ways we could save a little money, and then like how much do we need to save each week from our paycheck
Uh-huh.
to pay through massage school, and just being as thrifty as possible in those, or like when I was in my early 20s,
Mm.
and being okay, you know, drinking Bush Light, and not going out all the time,
Yeah.
and finding ways to pay my way my way through. But now because of that paid off, because I don't have the debt to have to pay for it, and I mean we're pretty lucky for that. And because like there's a lot of people I know who spend a big chunk of their paycheck their early years just trying to pay their way back through college.
Totally. Um, if you had taught, so Brennan decided to leave the business a couple years ago, right, and go do his own thing. How
Hmm.
was that with like your right hand man, the guy who'd been there with you since college, leaving, and how did you kind of like take the next step as your own when you didn't have that person to just like lean on and bounce ideas off all the time with? What was that like?
Definitely tough initially, mainly because him and we have different strengths. I think we have a good partnership because he likes spreadsheets. He's very organized. He's very he can get into like the boring stuff over like all day long. And
Mhm.
I like to be the creative person. I like to build content. I like to build, like, I really get into the technical stuff with the treatment. So I had to really intentionally change my schedule and block time to do the other things I don't like to do. Because
Gotcha.
a lot about business ownership is doing things you don't want to do,
Mhm.
um, and not just the things you like to do. So
Yeah.
finding ways to do that, and then also hiring people who had those skills. Because I think you think early on you can do everything yourself, and you really can't.
Mhm.
So I mean, I looked again at Bob and Mike's partnership and thought about like, why does that work? Like, Bob is the bills. Pays the bills. He does the organizational work. He does all the office and admin. People don't even know him. but that business wouldn't run without him, right?
Mhm.
And
Definitely.
Mike is the front guy, and he does all the training, and he worries about everything that goes on the floor, but he doesn't have to think about charging a credit card or paying a bill
Yeah.
or dealing with insurance. That's what Bob does, and that's like kind of what Mike and my relationship with Brendan has been like. And
Mhm.
so I always have to like, I still every day have to intentionally think about doing the things that like he used to do, like managing billing and payroll and stuff like that. But it's like just create systems and really doubling down on that. And I still reread the book E Myth like every year to remind myself, because it's easy to kind of get away from doing all of those mundane tasks on a day to day basis.
Definitely. Um, so I'm kind of curious. You've built up this awesome business for yourself. What's like exciting you now? Like, where are places you want to take movement as medicine in the future, or like what are some initiatives you're looking at right now?
Yeah, my main energy now is developing the staff. Like I think the better that they get, the better the business gets, and also the better career they can have.
Mhm.
It's not because it's not just about serving me. So thinking about, okay, how can I help them become better therapists? How can I help them become more empowered to make more money, and then hopefully give them opportunities to build their own thing, right? Um, Again, I think if I look at the model of the mentorship that I've had from Mike, is like he invests a lot of time and energy into staff development, to the point where we have a book club where every month they buy everyone who works there one book, and we read it and review it.
That's
We
awesome.
have an hour staff meeting every single Tuesday where we talk about, um, I mean, we'll talk about things like, as kind of ridiculous as like, hey, we should got to change the music station, or we could talk about split squats, or we could talk about like a specific client that we want to make sure we spend more attention on. So like we kind of cover everything, right? And I thought, I'm like, I need to do a better job doing that with my staff, even though I only have like 4 people.
Mhm.
um, if you want to have 50 people, I think you got to do a really good job with the first 4, right? And then you got to continue to build a model that can repeat itself. So I'm really 2021, especially. I was really writing down like things going forward, and it was really about staff development and more systemization for them, so that they can be more successful. Because I think that the more I invest in that, the more money they'll make.
Nice. Yeah, I'm always reading like the most important part of a business is like the people within it and the culture they bring, because if they're not embodying the culture, you're not going to be successful. What kind of things are you looking for when you're looking for new hires? Like, where did you find Scotty, or like
Yeah.
where did you find all these other people that now work with you?
But where did I find Scotty? It's just crazy. It's funny. Scotty was an intern at the gym.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was referred to us by, again, like, great referral. Sarah Cahill, former NBSC intern, strength coach for the U.S. women's hockey team. That's Scotty's cousin, and so she
Oh, interesting.
sent him in, and like he was from the woods up in Vermont,
Mhm.
and he wanted to go to massage school, and I said, all right, go to massage school. We'll get you to work. And but the reason we took him in, and the reason we take anybody in as an employee, is they're people. Like, we look for people who have good people skills and are relatable and they're nice. And because if you think about what you're doing, whether it's massage therapy or personal training, you're paying to spend an hour with somebody, and it's not cheap. So like, it's a luxury item, in that you're paying like $100 an hour to spend time with somebody else. They better be likable,
Yeah.
right? Like, and so I can kind of teach you how to train. I can teach you how to do treatment, but I can't really teach you people skills. I can't really teach you to be relatable. So
Mhm.
the number one thing Mike always says, CNP, certified nice person first. Um,
Like that.
and once they have that, we can kind of build from there. So like, that's why we love our internship process so much,
Mhm.
because it's like a 3-month interview. By the end of it, I know what your work ethic is like, I know what your people skills are like, and then I can decide, all right, this is someone we want to hire. So and the nice thing about movement is medicine is I usually pull people from the gym, because I want people who already kind of know the training system. And then if they're looking to make more money, I'll say, hey, I'll help you go to massage school, and give you somewhere to work. So like a guy like Craig,
Mhm.
who's going to start working for me pretty soon,
Nice.
um, finishing up massage school now, and trying to get him going, and he'll fit right in and hit the ground running with the rest of them.
Perfect. Yeah, I feel like Craig's a perfect example. Like, such a great people guy. Like, didn't know him at all the first time you introduced me, but immediately he and I just immediately hit it off, and we're chatting all the way
Yeah.
through our entire session. So that's great. So I'm kind of curious, like everybody I feel like has all these like roadblocks as they're building their business, or just like an oh shit moment, like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Like what's gonna happen? Did you find yourself like hitting any of these hurdles that like you were questioning whether you thought the business would keep going or
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot. I mean, just from losing employees, like people who were real dependable, who, I mean, you have to realize like you start to think about the value of having a system when you lose an employee and you're like, am I going to be sunk because I lost this person? Like I
Mhm,
lost, I think in the last span of a year, well, not a year, like Brendan left originally, then it was just me.
mhm,
Then I brought on Marco, and then I had Nicole, then I had Scotty, and we're hitting the ground running. And then I had Damien. So we're really killing it. I have all these people with full schedules. And then Marco leaves, and then Nicole leaves, and then Damien leaves. And I'm like, oh, now it's just me and Scotty. Right. And but then I'm like, all right, well, you got to start to build up. Then I, I'm able, to have Damien back for a while. Then I get Tyler going, and now we're moving again. Right. And so like when you start to think like, okay, it, when you have to have these moments where you have vulnerabilities kind of exposed in your business,
mhm,
so you realize like, okay, I don't want that to happen again. So you have to figure out, okay, how can I have to have someone ready to go. I have to have another employee ready to go. I have to have more systems so that my company can survive the ups and downs, because there's always going to be ups and downs. I mean, we were closed from March to July,
yeah,
and it's like, okay, how are we going to bounce back from that in a business where being in close proximity and touch to another person is
yeah,
a big part of it. How are we going to exist in a pandemic? And we've actually done okay since we bounced back, but it's about, I had to think about having other income streams for our business, having online coaching,
mhm,
having products, having things like that, so that if for some reason treatment goes down because I lose some employees or there's a pandemic, we still have income coming in, right? And so it opened up vulnerabilities, and now so we have some online coaching options that can help kind of bring some capital in. And I think you need to have those moments where you get tripped up, because then you realize, oh, that's a blind spot, but we survived it and it won't happen again, right?
totally. I'm kind of curious, have you learned, is it just like a natural progression of your employees like being coached up and they learn all these things and they're like, oh, like I see what Kevin is doing. I kind of want to do that on my own. Have you found that naturally once they do that, they're just always going to tend to want to go leave the flock and do their own thing? Or what does that look like?
I think that, so I always tell the coaches, like, you need to decide what path you want to take. Whether it's, like I said, you could go into a team setting and go work for a team or an organization, or if you're going to be in privatized strength and conditioning, you have to be entrepreneurial.
Mm,
Because if you're not, you're going to get frustrated. You're going to hit an earning ceiling really soon. Because if you're just training people on the floor in groups and on one-on-one, there's only so many hours in the day. And you
yeah.
can make a decent living, but you're going to be really busy. You're going to work all day. You'll get a good paycheck, but you'll just be tired by the end of the week. But that's okay. Some people, that's fine. But if you want to stay in the type of setting we're in, and you have to build some other businesses and other income streams. And if you're willing to do that, you can make a really good living. You can work for yourself, but you have to be willing to go out. So I always tell that to the people who work for us. And the reason I say that is because I want to keep them there, right?
Mhm,
If I can keep some employees longer and they can make more money doing a bunch of things like I do, then our company's better because we have more experienced staff.
mhm,
When you have to continually retrain people, like we do have a fair amount of turnover because we have a lot of young people, um, then it's just more work for us.
yeah.
And so, but guys like Steve Bigelow, who've been there for a pretty long time,
Mhm,
he has a few different things going on. He runs the online training business.
uh,
He manages the floor. He coaches every day. So he can stay and continue to work for us because his income's good and it's a nice place to work. And so I try to, you think about having these employees who want to go out and build things. So like a guy like Craig, I'm like, okay, let's build your massage business here. Then now he's getting into nutrition and food preparation for clients. I'm like, you should build that business. Like,
yeah.
encourage them to kind of build that. And if I can encourage them to build that and stay at MBSC and stay at Movement is Medicine, it serves them and it serves us. And again, if I can be someone who helps invest into the things that they're doing, it helps them get better and it helps us. So I always encourage that mindset. I think sometimes employers would be afraid of that, but I think in the type of setting that we work at, in a real small kind of family-owned business, if we can almost serve as an incubator for these coaches, it gives them an opportunity to grow in a kind of a safer space, because that's really what it was for me, for sure.
Nice. Yeah, I feel as though it always goes a really long way for someone to have your back and someone to believe in you. Because like, if you have at least one person that believes in you, it's so much easier to take that like leap of faith towards your thing. And it seems like if people are destined to leave, they're gonna leave. But the only thing you can do is like build them up as much as you can, and hope that they stick around. That's awesome. What? Oh, I was gonna ask you. So, you've given a ton of great insight into like what it's like to be a young business owner. But if looking all the way back to like young 18-year-old Kevin, what kind of advice would you give him or me or any like aspiring entrepreneur when you're first starting to look at your business and stuff like that, make your business stuff like that?
Ask for help. I think that's the one thing I didn't do soon enough. Like, again, you always think you can do things on your own, but like, you have all these resources and you develop relationships with people. Most people are willing to help you if you ask. You
Hmm.
say, hey, can you just give me some feedback on this? Or like, what do you think I should do here? You could save a lot of time and energy, um, if you just like think about someone who's successful and ask them for some advice, rather than, you don't always have to learn by mistakes.
Yeah.
So be willing. Like, I've realized like our network is so good of people who just come into the gym on a daily basis. Like, there's so many people you could just ask a question to who'd probably be willing to help. So I always tell people, think about who can help you, and ask them, because most people would probably say yes.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. One of the best advice I ever got was from my grandma. She always says the worst thing they can say is no, and then you just move on to the next person, which is so
Exactly.
true.
Exactly.
Um, so you already a lot of podcasts I listen to have a bunch of questions at the end that I love. It's like you already mentioned one of them, which was like, what are some of your favorite books that you've learned along the way? Which was E Smith. Is that like E
E
like
myth, E hyphen myth. Yeah.
oh myth? Okay,
Yeah.
nice. Are there any other books that helped you along the way, or that you really like to look into for stuff like that?
Yeah, E-Myth is definitely, that's one I reread all the time, because it like reminds me of all the stuff. Like, okay, yeah, I got to do better. And like every time you read it in your journey, you'll probably get something different out of it.
Mhm.
Because as a business owner, you always have the same problems, just on a different scale, probably.
Yeah.
Um, so that one is definitely the top of my list. There's this book, Boss Life, that's really
Okay.
interesting. It's very real. It's this guy talks about his business, and like, it's very honest. Like, he'll be like, "This was my bank account on this day. This is my debts on this day," and
Nice.
like, it gives you like a kind of sobering look. So then when you kind of
Uh,
look at your own situation, like, okay, we're doing okay.
yeah.
He takes you through kind of real his journey as a business owner. I can't even remember who the author is of the book, but it was good if you look up Boss Life. Um,
Perfect.
Five Dysfunctions of a Team is also, from a management standpoint, I think the
Yeah.
hardest thing I've found is like being a manager, and understanding where people fit, and like how to manage different people. Because eventually, if you want your business to grow, you have to develop the people that work with you. And so that one, was especially helpful for me as well.
Nice. And then another question I wanted to ask was, um, what do you think set you apart from as a successful entrepreneur, as other people who have tried and quote unquote failed? What was like the one defining thing that you think pushed you through?
I think I didn't. I've never viewed another alternative for my life. This is always like, once I committed to working here and building the business, and I saw the model that Mike had, and I saw myself like I could do what he's doing.
Mhm.
I never thought, like they always say, like, you got to burn your boats. Like, I never saw another option for me. So like, for me, I
Mhm.
just accepted, like, oh, this is what I'm gonna do. It's gonna be hard. There would be days when it wasn't as easy, when I'm tired, when I feel like, okay, I'm not making enough money, and then all of a sudden I'm like, just kept going. And I remember Mike saying something like, "You usually, everyone usually quits right before the big break."
Mm.
And I can think of a lot of times where I'm like, oh man, I don't know, this is tough. But then, we kind of just, something happens when we break through. So I think you just have to keep going.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Yeah, I remember 2 summers ago when I was rehabbing for an injury with Craig, he said something similar to me. He was like, it's all your biggest breakthrough is right when you're thinking about like quitting. And I was getting really frustrated because I felt as though my calf was injured at the time, and I felt as though I wasn't like getting anywhere. And then I came in that day like super down. I was like, Craig, I don't know if like my leg's ever gonna be better. Like I feel like we've been doing this for a long time. And he was like, good, like that I can tell like this is gonna be a great day. And he was so right. It was like that was one of the best. Like it felt great that day once we started going, and I was like, wow, I just had this whole new energy to keep going and pushing to try to get back to healthy. So it
That's
was,
awesome. That's awesome.
yeah. So that was awesome. Thank you so much for uh, talking with me today and letting us in know if your business Movement as Medicine. Where can people find out more about Movement as Medicine and you, like any social medias or anything?
Yeah, the best place to kind of get information is at Movement is Medicine on Instagram. And then certifiedfsc.com is our CFSC website. If anyone wants to look into what we do at Certified Functional Strength Coach, that'd be the best two places to find out.
That's it for this episode with Kevin Carr. I'm your host, Ben Skinner. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed. If you like this content and would like more, it'd really help out if you could leave a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Episode 2 is soon to come out, and until then, hope you have a great one and keep hustling.